afternoon and welcome back with Economics in 4, and we're doing Module 5 today, and this is an insert, Part 1, and we concentrate today on markets for goods and services. We're going to kick off with the first market of perfect competition, and we all know that markets is where there are buyers and sellers, and they are going to try to exchange goods for the best prices at hand. However, perfect. No theoretical situation can exist where something is perfect. Perfect can only exist when buyers and sellers are in perfect harmony. Sellers wanting to sell the product, the most number of products at a given price, and buyers are willing to pay a specific price for that given quantity of the product. And we know that buyers, from a point of view, because they're working with a budget, they would like to drive the prices down because they want to get the most product for the money it's worth. For the seller's point of view, they want to make a profit. And in the last insert of the last module, we discussed at length the different objectives of any firm, where they're going to try and maximize profit, they try to maximize revenue, and they want to maximize growth and development potential. So when we kick off with perfect competition, just bear in mind that there is seldomly a scenario where everything is perfect. But for your syllabus instruction, we're going to go through each of these market structures and see which one is the better one. So perfect competition. For this specific section, we're going to need to know about the 4 conditions that prescribes a perfectly competitive market, and then you're going to do difficult hesitance or barriers that would take away the possibility of a perfect competition happening within the market. And lastly, describes the prices and output in a perfectly competitive market. Remember what I just said, when a perfectly competitive market is that the buyer and the seller in the market is trying to compete. The buyer wants a specific quantity of product at a given price, and the seller needs to compromise at that price, or they're going to try and sell the most products because they're looking at revenue. So let's kick off with the conditions, 4 conditions. The first one of perfect conditions, of the perfect competition conditions, is there are many buyers and sellers in the market. Now we're looking at cereal, for example. We know a lot of cereal sellers, Bokomo, Kellogg's, etc. And then you have a lot of buyers for cereal because it's a household good. So with this, the first condition is there are many sellers of the product and there are many buyers of the product. Identical products, meaning it's a homogeneous set of characteristics that the product would be. Now there's a breakfast cereal, and they, for example, there's a breakfast cereal, and these buyers and sellers will, or the sellers will then compete with one another to get the better market share. So there's many, if you go into any retail store now and you look at the shelving, you have a variety of cereal. So there's many sellers of a specific product that would then conform to the homogeneous or the same characteristic of the product. On the other hand, with a product in mind, you'll know that, for example, the commodity or the product that is in the same no matter who produces it, such as petroleum, notebook, paper, or milk, or cereal for that matter. Informed buyers and sellers. Why? The buyer and the seller have knowledge about what they're going to sell and what are they going to buy. They already know the price beforehand. They know already the technique. So any person or any seller that comes into the market do not need to struggle with intrigued or very difficult techniques to actually sell the product or even to make the product. So we have informed buyers and sellers in a perfect competitive market. Free market entry. So anybody, like I just said, anybody that can come in is able to enter the market, and they will make money, and when they exit them, they will also lose the money. So you can almost see this complete balance with perfect competition. There's a complete balance between buyers and sellers. Buyers, if they have money to buy the product, and then the sellers that can satisfy the demand of the buyer. However, now we're going into the barriers of entry, meaning what could hinder a specific seller to enter the market of perfect competition. The first one is startup cost. The expenses a firm that they pay beforehand to start up a business is quite weighty. It is a lot of cost that they need to put into the business in order to reach an equilibrium where they can actually say, now I am a feasible business. Because remember, they have quite a big competition with other sellers as well. One, there's many sellers in the market, so they're going to have a competition all the time with other people, with other stores or competitors or producers, in order to keep their market share at bay. The next one is technology. Some markets require a high degree of technological know-how. If you're in competition, the faster, the better, the number of products that you can produce in a short period of time, that will put you in the front running of the race. Whereas if you are lagging behind with technology, you're going to be last in the row, and then the other sellers are already trying to get the market share that you tried to get into. So those could be part and parcel of your barriers to entry. Firstly, startup cost, and the other one being technology or technological advances. Price and output. Remember what I said? The seller wants a specific price to sell the product at, but the buyer wants to drive the price down because they want, for example, a bargain, or they want a discount. So you always have this input and output scenario, or even a price war. If you go into a shop and there's a whole shelf of different cereal, what is going to be your determinant to buy a specific cereal? Is it not going to be price? For example, I can get 300 grams of Rice Krispies for 30 Rand. But 30 Rand can buy me a 900 gram of Wheat Bix. Which one is going to be the better? Or let's put the two products in the same league. Because Rice Krispies and Wheat Bix, the one is an adult cereal and the other one is a child cereal. Let's put Wheat Bix and Nutrifix together. We have 1 kg Nutrifix at 45 Rand, and you have Wheat Bix at 1 kg at 36 Rand. Which are you going to buy? So these two cereals are going to compete to get the market share. So we're looking at price and we're looking at output. How much can I get for my buying power? And that's perfect competition. Where the market, the buyer and the seller, are trying to keep a balance within the market. Prices are correctly represented in the opportunity cost of the product, and prices are the lowest sustainable price possible. Let's move on to monopoly. And just to recap, you'll find the characteristics of perfect competition on page 68. Page 69 concludes with profit maximization. And how do you get to your revenue? Last insert was price times quantity. And you remember the price times quantity, that is what you get to your revenue. The number of products that you are having or selling at a specific price. And that will give you revenue. How do you get average cost or average revenue? Is when you take your total revenue divided by the number of products that you are selling. And then marginal revenue. For each additional unit that you are selling, you're making X amount of revenue. That was last insert of module 4. Please recheck. And if you have any queries or any comment on the video, or email me directly. Then on page 70, it just goes continue as to profit maximization. Profit maximization meaning the most revenue is more, the revenue exceeds your cost. Remember, we had different costs. We had the fixed cost and we had the variable cost, and that total made up your total cost. So your total revenue minus fixed cost would give you your total profit. But normal profit is when your revenue equals your cost. That is where you're actually making an equilibrium state, because you're neither making a profit or a loss. But in economics terms, in perfect competition, we would talk about a normal profit. When we exceed, our revenue exceeds the cost, we're talking about profit maximization. And that you'll find on page 71. And there's a curve, a short run curve, that is also in your notes. That definitely your revenue will increase the more you sell. That's a normal scenario. And that is what perfect is all about. The more you sell, the more revenue you receive. So that would be a positive slope. On page 72, you'll have the normal profit, the average revenue times the average cost, and we will touch on these more curves in the next week when we do short run and long run scenarios. Before we go on, I want you to sink in and do the class activity after that section so that you can actually recap on perfect competition. Let's see each other again in part 2, when we will start off with monopoly. Not the game, but the real economic condition. Thank you for viewing.